Happy Monday, everyone, Surry County. Getting ready to share some more information. I'm going to deviate just a little bit, but everything's going to be pointing to the type individuals that this group being led by Kevin Chenault is. And I'm going to say anyone going forward here who supports them, who tries to get you to vote with Kevin Chenault or Mark Jones, who talks to you about it, those are the same people that are going to support this agenda that they have. I will say initially, the past leadership had to be changed in our county because there was too much political power in that system, in leadership in this party, and it was impossible to talk to anyone then. So those are the people that this group, that I supported this group for trying to remove so that we could listen for the good of the children in this county, some people that would listen to us and ultimately didn't have their own agendas at heart. As it turns out, this group has their own agenda of remaining in power and trying to bully and whatever people. But the past administration appointed their friends and buddies, elected officials, and I'm, for lack of a better term, the country club crowd. So we, the people, didn't have a voice on the executive committee and the boards that represented Republicans in Surry County. In no way represented the grassroots. However, this group has gone too far the other direction, and so those people who represent conservative values, who got caught up, I believe, in their own personal agendas and elected positions and maintaining power. Some of you may know and some of you may not. In the past, when Democrats had Surry County, there was about one man you went through to get anything done in this county, and I'm not going to name names. And then there was, when the Republicans got control and they had control of the party, you about had to go through one or two individuals in the Republican Party if you needed to get anything done in our county. And basically, everyone else was not allowed to talk to you about anything or work with you as a citizen. So what we've done, I will say that some of the people that's been moved from office were part of that last group of people who supported their upper echelon group, and so we removed them from office. And some were on the executive committee that refused to talk and try to have equal representation in Surry County from the grassroots people, from the elected officials. So my goal in coming out, I had basically stepped away. But when I saw this group begin to change the rules, similar to what happened in our country that ultimately removed Trump, in my opinion, the best president ever. I don't care what anybody else says. I have a right to my opinion. But ultimately, that they changed the process in their favor, which and to get power. And so this group, while screaming loud that they are against Nancy Pelosi and all of that group for what they're doing in the House of Representatives in the United States, are doing the same thing. They changed the rules last minute, didn't notify individuals. And I will point this out, and I'll share some information, again, connected in a Facebook post to go with this video. You hear Democrats say that Republicans disenfranchise voters. I'd never thought about that. I mean, I'm like, how are we disenfranchising voters? But I will point out that people like Kevin Chenault, and Mark Jones, and Gail Norman, who are leading our party now, are disenfranchising voters. How are they doing that? Well, they're not disenfranchising Democrats. They're disenfranchising Republicans, eliminating the ability for some Republicans to vote as delegates in this upcoming precinct in March, this upcoming convention in March. They're disenfranchising Republicans. Now, what kind of leadership is so hungry for power and control that they disenfranchise grassroots Republicans who may not be able to attend those meetings? Some of those meetings will be after dark. I know Siloam meeting they have scheduled at Libby Hill in northern Mount Airy and drive after dark. I know older people, the lady who's I'm trying to help here doesn't drive after dark and didn't ever as she got older because she can't see good. especially if the weather's bad. So by moving those precinct meetings to elect delegates who they hope will eventually support them outside of the precinct, some by 8 or 10 miles or more. I haven't measured the distance, but I do know as far south as you can be in Surry County, in Siloam, you would have to come to Libby Hills in Mount Airy. That's about as far north in Surry County as you can get to just simply vote in your own precinct. Are they going to try to tell me there was nowhere in Siloam, a Ruetan building or something like that, that the precinct chair there and Mark Jones and Kevin Chenault and Gail Norman could have scheduled the meeting at, so those elderly voters that didn't want to drive so far could come and didn't have to worry about driving after dark and be concerned with that? They could have been a mile from their house at a Ruetan building or church or something in Siloam, but to try to disenfranchise and cause people to not just throw up their hands and say, I'm not driving that far to do this. They're disenfranchising those elderly voters. The second group they're disenfranchising is the handicapped, people in wheelchairs and handicapped voters, maybe on walkers or that can't climb steps good or other things. And how are they doing that? By hosting these precinct meetings at the homes of people they support and think will support them. They're even pressing a gentleman a lifetime friend of mine who's getting caught up in it. They're pressed him to have it at his home, wanting him or his wife to be the precinct chair in Mount Airy combined, having it at his home. Certainly that's within the precinct, I believe, but there's no handicap access. And if there is, I would challenge handicap restrooms that are required by state law and through handicap things to be provided for handicapped people by public buildings and are inspected and such as that. Those things are not available in private homes. So by hosting these meetings in private homes, they're disenfranchising handicapped voters that may need access to handicapped facilities. So I encourage, I will post an email with this, with the information of this, to make sure to file complaints. I'll post Mark Jones, because he's saying nobody's complaining but me. It's time to start. If you know people that can email, I'll post the email of the state party leader as well as Mark Jones, so he will recognize that it's not just me that's raising complaint and concern. If let's put it this way, if you don't want everybody to have a chance to vote, then you're not leading all the people. And I'll share some information. The last thing that I will share the information to show where they're disenfranchising the voters. You can go to surry.gop.nc if you have a computer. You're being disenfranchised now if you don't have a computer. This lady that I'm with here now, 84, doesn't have a computer. So she could have been notified by telephone or some sort of that. Certainly there's always going to be somebody that may not be able to make it or may not have known, but I believe our best efforts should be to serve. My understanding from Mark Jones' statement is 21,000 Republicans, and to try to control a process so that only a few handful of people have opportunity to voice their choice for party leadership, in my opinion, is inappropriate and continued behavior like I've been pointing out from Mark Jones' first time in office. I will say, someone has asked why I hadn't done anything sooner. I was recovering from surgery at the last convention and was in the hospital, prior to that, so I would have done it then, but I didn't have the means to get around. I was recovering. I actually had staples in my stomach and felt like I had a knife sticking in me at the last convention where the delegates and Mark Jones was put up by Kevin Chenault. The last thing I'm going to point out when we talk about people calling out, I say the last thing. There's one other thing I wanted to point out too. So let me start with that and I'll finish with the racism. These individuals, Gail Norman and Mark Jones, play good cop, bad cop. Mark Jones might say something to piss you off, and then he'll send, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call minions, but he'll send his people, let's just say people, that's nicer, because some of them are decent people, are good people, but they're just caught up in this too. But then he sends those people out to try to still sway you to support them, even though Mark Jones has treated you like crap or dissed you or talked down to you like you're some piece of dirt. And because I don't know if it's to show his superiority that he thinks he has or what it is. But Scott Elvis, I have no reason to mention Scott Elvis. As y'all know, Scott Elvis has posted negative about me, doesn't like me, and you know, that's his choice, not mine. If he came here now, I'd shake his hand, and I hope to do that in the future when I point out to him and his dad what's been going on. Scott Elvis, I'll tell you up front, Mark Jones, and I want them to deny this, because when they deny it, then I can present proof, but I want them to step up. Actually, Mark Jones, I've got backbone enough. I haven't deleted Mark Jones off my friends list. All Mark Jones has to do is call me a liar in this post, and we'll, because I'm not going to say anything I don't have proof of. Always the truth backed with the proof. Because if you just ramble on, they'll try to tell people you're crazy and don't know what you're talking about. But when you bring the proof and show proof, then it turns back on to them once they've denied it and said they didn't do it. And then you provide the proof that they actually did. It shows their character. So what they've done since I've objected across the board, have stood together and tried to attack my character. Joe's this violent person, this and that, and I'll share also some information going forward. I'll probably bring it up in the next video where I objected the other night, have it all on tape, because I kind of suspected, because it's all that's been going on. I never got out of my seat. Mark Jones screamed, yelled at me. There was witnesses there telling me all I did was start trouble, and I merely offered objection to this sham they're running, trying to maintain control, because I'd seen them do similar before. So anyway, there was witness. It's on tape. It turns out Gail Norman goes out, and I'll share some information in regards to this going forward. Gail Norman goes out and calls the police on me because I objected. They're screaming at me, and looking back, they're trying to get me to jump or get me to do something inappropriate. That way, then they can say I did it, you know, and have a leg to stand on. As it was, I sat in my chair and never got up, and Mark was pointing his finger at me, and Gail was standing behind me saying, Joe, 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 we're just volunteers. And I'm like, Gail, how about Mark, Mark, Mark? And I finally told Mark, go on and leave me alone. I'm still in my chair in precinct number 5. So Gail goes out and calls the police and comes and turns out, tells them that I've threatened her as is another false accusation. I'm glad I had it on tape. I'm not stupid, but that I didn't threaten her. And so I specifically, it turns out Gail told him that I threatened her, that I had threatened her in some form or fashion. The reason she called him, it didn't happen. Should be a charge for making a false police call, to be honest with you, because all I did was object to their dictatorship. Kevin Chenault, Mark Jones, and Gail Norman, and anybody that supports those 3 names. Anyway, Scott Elvis, sorry, I got to rambling there. Scott Elvis, after talking to me, you were in the clerk's race, not clerk's race, but in the Register of Deeds race. After talking to me on the phone, because although this has been going on in public, Mark Jones and I have continued to talk behind the scenes, and I'll be glad to sit down face to face with you and shake your hand and tell you what went down and what our conversation consisted of after all of this. But Scott Elvis, after talking to me, Mark Jones and Gail Norman and Kevin Chenault put Todd Harris in the race. Made a phone call to him, asked him if he would run, and they would throw their support. But while doing that, they made you think they were supporting you. They weren't. They were working with us. So now they're trying to manipulate you and keep manipulating you, thinking that they're on your side. They're not. They're using you just like they tried to use me. Don't let it happen. I'm just saying. Keith Center from Marsh District. And I want some of y'all, I don't have him on my friends list. If I've got him blocked, it's a YouTube video. If I've got him blocked, I'll go unblock him. I'll check that. But Keith Center, I think they've got him listed on the slate of candidates, maybe as vice chair. Keith Center, they put your name on there. I don't know who suggested you or who put it up, and you might have said you'd be willing to do it. But while they're doing that to try to keep your support and vote, they are actively working against you and trying to recruit someone else to step up against you because they don't want you as vice chair. But they're pretending like they do so they can keep you and Marsh votes in their favor. I know you're better than that, brother. We used to shake hands and talk all the time at college. They've allowed us to be divided and they do that often, by telling you this person said that or that person said that, and then they'll come to me and say you said something, whether it happened or not. But they want all of us to feel like they trust them more than that we can trust them, but we can't trust nobody else. But at the same time, they're manipulating us to support them, and we can't support that anymore. Finally, I'll share some information about the cold-bloodedness of this group of three, especially Mark Jones, in regards to Norman Marion's passing, and that didn't matter to them, that Mark Marion had to deal with his brother in the hospital. They basically could have cared less. I pointed out that he didn't even know about it, being one of the most liked Republicans in this county. And they said, well, if he's not doing his job, then it's not on us. And I said, man, he was dealing with his brother in the hospital and ultimate death. And he said, well, I'll have my opinion and you have yours. Cold-blooded people for their political purposes, and I'll share that information. And I pray the Elks, the brothers in the Elks, and any of the Norman family, anybody in Dobson, come forth and help us. We've got to stop this craziness in our county. And I'll share some more on the next video. I'll watch this again. It's gone a little long. I apologize. I said I wasn't going to do but 10 minutes, but I got to rambling. I may rehash a little of this in the next video, which will come not long after this one. It probably won't be a day like it has been because we've got to get on the ball. Surry.gop.nc. Scroll down past the donation button and see there's a button to click on to see when your precinct meetings are. They're trying to make sure you don't know. I'm contesting that they're having them at private residences. Even given the COVID, who wants to go in and use somebody else's towels in their private house and restroom that's not kept up to they're kept up to the homeowner specifications, not health department specifications, so that COVID is not transmitted. And certainly there's not space enough in some people's home to spread all the people that might show up out far enough to maintain safe distance if they would like to. I'll touch base on this some more. I'm sorry for going long, 17 minutes. A little information will follow after this. One is Mark Jones' disregard for Norman Marion. Let's stand and fight in Norman Marion's memory, if nothing else. God bless Surry County. More to come quicker than it has been. God bless.